Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca, and welcome to Dragon's Hoard. Today, we will be talking about the second installment of the Throne of Glass series after we have finally finished all 55 chapter recaps of Throne of Glass itself. Okay, so as I was saying, we're going to go over book 2. We are going to be talking about Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas, the second installment of Throne of Glass. Okay, the sun doesn't want to cooperate today, so we're going to figure this out eventually. Maybe it'll work. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to take a look at the cover review for Crown of Midnight. And once again, this is just the standard paperback edition that has been released, the newer covers. And the cover itself, as you could have seen, is likable in a minimalistic way. So here we go. I'll just hold it here in the time I talk about it. As we can see, the edges of Crown of Midnight, as opposed to Throne of Glass, are actually lighter than the center. And this time, our background is a dark turquoise with some lighter elements coming into play. I don't know if you can see. You can barely see. I'll get closer in a second. And I believe the concept for this cover is actually the Avery River, which runs through Rifthold. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what this is supposed to be depicting. So as we can see, right up here on this tower looking thing, we see a female figure holding a sword. We can assume that is Selena, and it appears she is overlooking the city that is on the banks of this river, so I'm pretty sure it's the Avery. The author's name and the title of the work are both done in the same font. It's pretty simple font compared to other books. It's very crisp and clean. The only embellishment are what appear to be beveled edges or angled edges of the letters when you look at it. And the author's name is in white. It is slightly smaller than that of the title of the book, and while the title is done in a lighter turquoise color to still flow with the palette of the book that they chose, but not be so offset that it looks out of place or blends in with the author's name if it were to be white as well. Black, you just wouldn't even be able to see it. Overall, for me, this cover gets a 2 stars out of 5 just because I'm not a big fan of these covers. It's okay, but it's not my favorite in any way, shape, or form. If I had to actually pick a favorite, it would probably be the Acrylics Legacy hardcover edition. I'm not sponsored. I just really love that special edition of the Throne of Glass series. I think it is wonderful. I think it's amazing. I love the sprayed edges. I love everything about it, okay? Not so much the standard edition paperback. Alright, so now I'm going to go back to where I was sitting before. Alright, the sword needs some love too. Anyhow, from here, we are going to go over the synopsis of the book. I want to try and make sure it doesn't have any spoilers, and then we'll get to the spoilers more ahead. I will let you know when that's coming out, and I will also put it in the timestamps below. So as I mentioned previously, this is the second installment of the Throne of Glass series, and Selena, since she became King's Champion at the end of book 1, she is now acting as the King's Champion. She is doing what the King's Champion was meant to do, which is dispose of the King's enemies or whoever he deems a possible threat to his throne. Selena, of course, considering she was Adderland's assassin previously, does her job spectacularly. And as she's returning from her last mission, because this is where we pick up, she is returning from her last mission with a bag of ooey gooey decaying heads and fingers. And since she became King's Champion, we learn that there's basically no one else that outranks her in the castle except, of course, for the king, the royal family, the usual. And so she just pretty much has free reign. She walks in with her gooey bag of goodies, and she walks straight to the throne room to give her report and her proof of completing this mission to the king. Once satisfied with the proof that Selena throws at his feet and demonstrates to him, the king then gives her a new mission. This new mission is to take out a new target, and that new target is none other than the famous courtesan Archer Finn. We learn that Selena knew Archer Finn during her childhood because Archer was sent to the Assassin's Keep to train in self-defense at that time. So knowing that, Selena doesn't believe that Archer is actually in league with all of the rebels. She's like, well, what are you talking about? But she doesn't let this show on her face, so she's just like, I got you. And she decides, okay, I'll take this mission, but I'm going to get to the root of what is going on because I don't believe anything that you're telling me right now. And the king gives her a time frame of 1 month to dispose of Archer, so that gives her time to be able to gather information, do her reconnaissance, make contact with her target, things like that. So that is what she has to work. And of course, this is the main plot line that the entire story follows. However, there are multiple subplots that allow this book to move forward. I will give you a few tidbits, no names, so that will be to your discretion when you read it. Here are some of the main subplots that we do see in this book. Someone important discovers that they have magic. Someone else discovers another secret passage in the library. Someone else dies a horrid and tragic death. And lastly, there is a romance that blooms and then dies just as quickly. And as I said, all of these important subplots, they drive the story forward because without it, we would get stuck. But it's also obscured by alternating POV. So typically, whoever's POV or whoever's involved in that POV, they're the only ones that actually know what's going on. They only have so much information. And when we reach the end of Crown of Midnight, our perspective completely just changes. There is a massive revelation, and it is incredible and sad, and it's just all of the feels all at the same time. All right, so now that we've gone over that, we are going to go ahead and look at my thoughts and opinions from this story. And of course, during this time, we're going to have so many spoilers. So if you don't want spoilers, don't watch my thoughts and opinions. Just skip ahead because I am going to go over so much. So, one of my first thoughts going into Crown of Midnight after finishing Throne of Glass was that the writing style. The writing style completely different. The writing style, there is a shift because of how much time passed between Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight. And it does seem like in Crown of Midnight, the writing is more, what shall I say? The writing is more structured than it was in Throne of Glass, but it's not as detail oriented as Throne of Glass was. And by detail oriented, I mean what everyone's wearing when the scene changes. So that's a bit of a difference because if we read it back to back, then you will notice it'll just throw you off. You'll be like, "What?" It does maintain that change of wardrobe, things like that, the scenery when there are changes of location, scene changes, important events, things like that. I wasn't bothered by this because it actually made it more enjoyable when we were able to see the wardrobe changes that Selena goes through because then it's not just her constantly changing clothes over and over and over again. It's like, wow, that is spectacular. I wish I could see that in person. Another big change that came in this book, at this one I was mad about. I'm not gonna lie, I was mad about this, is the romance. And that's just because in book one, the characters that we see that become romantically involved, they couldn't stand each other in book one. They pretty much hated each other. They could not deal. But it seems like in book two, all of a sudden they're real buddy buddy just together, like, I don't know, peanut butter and jelly. So I felt like that was really forced and like slapped into a frying pan way too fast. And this is the main point where I could feel the distance between book one and book two. It's like the author kind of forgot what the dynamic was between these two characters during the time that she spent not writing Crown of Midnight. That's truly the only thing that I really didn't like about Crown of Midnight was that aspect of the romance. That bothered me. Well, not really the only thing that bothered me. There are a couple other things. Mainly, how far Kel has his head shoved up his rear. Okay, he is, I don't know, he just feels so self absorbed sometimes and only thinking about himself and no one else. And I'll explain with a direct quote from the book. Because listen to what Kel is thinking when the king tells him not to tell his champion something. Alright, so we are on page 151, and it says, while he knew that Selena would be furious that he didn't tell her, he was captain of the guard. He had fought and sacrificed nearly as much as Selena had to get to this position. He'd let her get too close by asking her to dance. He'd let himself get too close. I'm sorry, Kel, what? You did not. You have not fought or sacrificed nearly as much as Selena has to get to where she's at right now, okay? Do you really think you fought and sacrificed as much as she has? You are nowhere near her because for starters, okay? For starters, you'd have to break your own hand to learn how to sword fight better with your left hand. You'd have to break your right one. Kel, you didn't spend a year in Endovir when you were, I don't know, 17 years old. As a starving slave. You even mentioned previously that you didn't believe you would survive it. Kel just, Kel makes me mad. Kel makes me so mad. But we are going to move on before I go into a complete crash out over Kel's, I don't know. I can't even think of words right now. One of the things that I did really like was the introduction of the new cast of characters that are introduced in this book. That would be Dorian's younger brother, Holland Haviliard. We also get introduced to his cousin, Roland Haviliard. We meet Baba Yellowlegs, who does end up being a very important part of the story, just not yet. And as far as this installment of Throne of Glass goes, there isn't really anything else that I would particularly want to see more of. I was actually quite content with what we were shown and went through in this story, but I do have a few highlight moments I'd like to talk about. So one of these highlight moments is when Selena and Kel are actually together and they're being nice to each other. And Kel just tells Selena, because of everything, like they're talking about whatnot, for you, I'd say that chocolate cake is most definitely a need. He's not being condescending, surprisingly. But I do like this when you have the full context. I'm just not going to give you the full context. For this, I love that he understands how much she loves chocolate cake and how much he's learned to understand her at this point in the story. But I hate the fact that it's not Dorian, you feel me? Another highlight moment is when, after the closed door smut scene that we have in this story, this is golden. I wish I had a smidge of Selena's self-confidence because this beautiful. All right, this is the love interest asking Selena. I wish I'd stop knocking my sword down. All right, this is the love interest talking to Selena. And he says, I don't want you to think I'm agreeing to keep it secret because I'm ashamed in any way. Who said anything about shame? She gestured down to her naked body, even though it was covered by the blanket. Honestly, I'm surprised you're not strutting about, boasting to everyone. I certainly would be if I tumbled me. Does your love for yourself know no bounds? Absolutely none. Selena, please. Just a smidge. That's all I'm asking of you. Like, seriously. Wow. If you just think about it, if as women we had this level of confidence in ourselves and this much body positivity, we would be unstoppable. That is just, it just makes me so happy to see that because of how powerful that is. Now, the next thing that I do want to talk about does take a darker turn. It is not a happy scene, okay? But it is hilarious, especially if you've read the other series that Sarah J. Maas has written. Now we're on page 219, chapter 28. Her rage took her to a place where she only knew three things: that Kel had been taken from her, that she was a weapon forged to end lives, and that if Kel was hurt, no one was going to walk out of that warehouse. Okay, Zelena, what in the rune Dannon are you talking about? You only know three things. Really? Okay, so there's that. Moving on to our next little highlight moment of Crown of Midnight. That was slightly dark, but it's only going to get darker, okay? Sorry, it is what it is, the series of prison. You will never be my friend. You will always be my enemy. She bellowed the last word with such a soul deep hatred that he felt it like a punch to the gut. Well, how have the turns tabled? Oh, I'm sorry, the tables turned. God, this series is a prison. So, if you have the entire context, you know that this is directed at someone who was the love interest, the lover. But now, this getting screamed at you, and you realizing, I messed up. And you realize, I've made an awful mistake, and there's no fixing it now. All right, so now going on to the next little tidbit, the next little highlight. We are going to skip some context, but the quotes are pretty coherent. I just really enjoyed them, so I want to share them with you. So, can I ask why you decided to join me for dinner? You've made it pretty clear that you didn't want to spend any time with me, and I thought you had work to do tonight because I have nowhere else to go. He nodded, looking at her with kindness she couldn't stand. Then you will always have a place here. Oh, that's so sweet, and it's crazy to think that someone that you either push away or you distance yourself from because you don't want them involved might end up being the one and only person that you have left who is willing to help you through your hard times. Okay, this next quote, it's not so much as a highlight as it is crucially important for the story's development further along in the upcoming books. And we see it is Baba Yellowlegs, and she is looking at Selena, so she's looking at her. The woman studied her from head to toe, sniffing once. Nameless is my price, Yellowlegs said, but gold will do for now. If you know, you know. If you've read Throne of Glass, you know. If not, please read it so we can all talk about it. Because what do you mean that I missed this the first time I ever read Throne of Glass? The next little highlight really just, I guess, spoke to me because I was excited and seeing something that relates to when your friend is being obnoxious and they won't just spit out what they wanted to talk about because they're like, I don't know what's going through their head, but they're being obnoxious. So, are you going to ask me whatever it is you dragged me out here to ask? Or am I just going to enjoy freezing my ass off for the rest of the night? Brother, why are you so annoyed? They just want to ask you a question and obviously they're nervous about it. And I just find that hilarious. I think it's great. I don't know if anyone else's amusement is along those lines, but mine it's a mess, okay? And here we have a super, super, super spoiler. This is where we get an onslaught of character development that we would not see coming from a million miles. Not really, but it's super important. Something invisible slammed into the creature, sending it flying into the wall with a crunch. Gods, Dorian didn't just have magic. He had raw magic, the rarest and deadliest kind. Sheer, undiluted power, capable of being shaped into whatever the wielder desired. What? Dorian has magic? Dorian has the rarest kind of magic. What are you talking about? In a kingdom where magic is outlawed, the king kills anyone that basically even mentions magic or the Fae or anything of that sort. What do you mean Dorian has magic, and how can he use it if no one else is able to use magic right now? There are other highlights for our character development because, for one, Selena learns a little bit about the weird marks and how to use them. So she ends up opening a portal for reasons not discussed right now. But another thing is that the king senses this portal open. So how is he able to sense it? Like, what? That was surprising. I was surprised, but thankfully, what's his name? Duke Parrington was sent away, so the king can actually be like, hey, figure out who opened this portal, which gratefully saves Selena and her posse of troublemakers. Another thing, because of that portal, Selena it kind of becomes apparent she's not really who she says she is. I'll explain in a minute. It's after this that we get into the best part of this entire book. It's also the biggest spoiler. And even though, okay, so I have to spoil something else first. If you hadn't guessed already, Selena and Kel, they were a thing. They're not a thing anymore. But Kel still loves her in some way, shape, and form. He knows he's the one that messed up. And he knows that she is in great danger, and more danger than she's ever been within the kingdom of Adderland, especially being in the castle. So he comes up with a harebrained plan to send Selena off to a faraway land known as Windland for her own protection. But he needs support within the council when he proposes his idea to the king of Adderland. That way it's all supported and they decide, hey, you know what, that's a great idea, let's ship her off. So Kel barters with his father. He has been estranged from his family, but he barters with his father, and now he owes his father, and what he owes his father is returning to his homeland to become the heir the title he was stripped of before, to become the heir of Anil. So that is Kel's price he has to pay for Selena's safety. Dorian has no idea what's going on. Kel doesn't tell him. Kel's trying to keep Dorian out of it because Dorian was knocked out when everything was going down. Okay, and this is the last but the best highlight of this entire book. I 100% love this. So as we mentioned, Kel bartered and made a deal to get Selena shipped to safety. All right, he still loves her in his own way. Okay, so he sends her off for her survival because she is Fae. But in reality, I've never been so satisfied with an I ducked up moment in my life reading a book because Kel's is glorious. Kel, after Selena is gone, goes to her rooms and he sees some books that Dorian has left there. And Kel had suspicions previously, but now he has more ideas because Selena told him something important before she got on the boat to leave. And Kel grabs this Royal Chronicle. It's so good. All right, so now we're going to read the excerpt from the Royal Chronicle that Kel reads. This morning, King Orlon Galathinius, his nephew and heir, Ro Galathinius, and Ro's wife, Evelyn, were found assassinated. Orlon was murdered in his bed at the royal palace in Orange, and Ro and Evelyn were found dead in their beds at their country estate along the river Florine. There is no word yet about the fate of Ro and Evelyn's daughter, Aelin. Kel's freaking out because he's thinking, oh my god, is it possible? Does she know where the lost princess Aelin Galathinius is? So he's like grabbing other books, just going at it. Grabs the first genealogy he finds of Terrasen and Adderland to check and see what's going on in there. And he's not finding anything, but while he's thinking, he's like, Evelyn. Evelyn was not of this bloodline name, whatever. Evelyn's last name was Ashriver. Hope that's right. And then he's like, well, Evelyn had come from Windland itself, and she was a princess, obviously. So then Kel yanks out a book about Windland's royal family tree, and he finds it on the very last page, Aelin Ashriver Galathinius, and then her mother's name, but this tree only follows the maternal line. And there's a reason it only follows the maternal line, and it is because the above Aelin's name is Evelyn's name, of course. And 2 spots above Evelyn is Mob, Aelin's great grandmother. And Mob, since we didn't know, Mob was one of the 3 Fae sister queens. So there was Maeve, Mora, and Mob. This is phenomenal. Mob was the youngest and the fairest, who, when she died because she gave up her immortality, had been made into a goddess, and that goddess was known as the goddess Diana, Lady of the Hunt. And that is when the memory hits him in the face like a freaking brick. That Yulmas morning, when Selena had looked so uncomfortable to be receiving the golden arrow of Diana, the arrow of Mob, and Kel counted down the family tree, one after one, until my great-grandmother was Fae. Another memory. Kel starts to brace himself against the desk so he doesn't fall out. He just made a connection in his head and he does not believe it. He's just like, there is no way. No. So he turns back to the chronicle that he was reading. It was still open, and he turns the page to see what it says happened the next day after the Galathiniuses were murdered. And it reads, Aelin Galathinius, heir to the throne of Terrasen, died today, or sometime in the night. Before help could reach her deceased parents' estate, the assassin who had missed her the night before returned. Her body has still not been found, though some believe it was thrown into the river behind her parents' house. What do we need to recall from the first? I think it was the first book. Selena had once said that Arobin Hamel, the king of assassins, had found her half dead and frozen on a riverbank. Kel's still reeling. He still can't believe what he thinks he's found. He's in shock. He thinks he's jumping to conclusions. He's thinking maybe she wants him to know that she still cares about Terrasen. But then he sees that there's a poem written at the top of the Ash River family tree, and it reads, Ash River eyes, the fairest eyes from legends old, of brightest blue, ringed with gold. Bright blue eyes ringed with gold. Sounds like somebody we know. And Kel cries out because he realizes he messed up. And he starts to think to himself, how many times have I looked into those very eyes and also seen that whenever she's around the king, she does not look directly at him. She's always casting her gaze downward. Why? Because that's the only thing that she can't hide or conceal about who she really is. I know you've put it together, but just the reveal is phenomenal. I love this. I love this last part of the book. Selena Sardathian wasn't in league with Aelin Ash River Galathinius. Selena Sardathian was Aelin Ash River Galathinius, heir to the throne and rightful queen of Terrasen. I just love that so much because what do you mean this assassin that has been just beaten and tortured and gone through all of these things was actually the princess who is now the heir to this land that the king of Aderlane is what? And she's working for the person that orchestrated all of these deaths. What do you mean? There's no way. But it's true. Because Selena Sardathian is Aelin Ashriver Galathinius, queen and rightful heir to the throne of Terrasen. And Kel has just sent her to the land of the Fae, right into the clutches of her aunt Queen Maeve of the Fae, of course. And Kel just loses it. He sinks to his knees and he's just like, no. He has a breakdown. We don't really see it, but we just know he sinks to his knees. And that is where Crown of Midnight ends. It's phenomenal. I love it. All right, so now that we've gone over the synopsis, we've gone over my thoughts and opinions, my highlights of this read. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the magic system. So the magic system so far in book 2 is relatively the same as in book 1, but we do learn that the king obviously has some kind of magic or something that he's using to control the magic in the rest of the kingdom. Anyways, he's controlling all of what's left of magic in the rest of the kingdom. We also learn that Selena learns how to use some weird marks, not to their full proficiency, but she learns to use enough and learns how to read enough of them to be okay with using them. Because as we know, weird marks do work in this kingdom where no other magic works because of their antiquity and because of their functioning system that we don't really understand that well yet. But we do also learn that Dorian has magic, which how is it possible that Dorian has magic when there's no one else can use magic? But we don't get an explanation yet. Would I recommend this book and this series to others? Yes, absolutely. This is my favorite series of all time. It has the most insanely backstoried and tragic FMC that I have ever read. So if you like fantasy, creepy monsters, yearning, fights, and mystery, then yes, pick this up. It is fantastic. That is, of course, after you've read Throne of Glass, at least. I'm not saying you have to read Assassin's Blade, but at least pick up Throne of Glass before going into Crown of Midnight. Will I be reading the next book? Absolutely. I have to continue this series. I'm actually doing a reread of the entire Throne of Glass series. So that is what I'm working on right now. This is why we are here today talking about not the rooster, talking about Crown of Midnight. So I will be continuing, probably not with Assassin's Blade. I think I'll read Heir of Fire, Assassin's Blade, and then continue the rest of the series from there. But I am going to read them all, and we're going to look at them all. Do I have any similar books to the Throne of Glass series? Not as far as like this high fantasy epic feel to it. There is, of course, When the Moon Hatched. However, in that book, they do have access to their magic, most people. However, it is not focused on like the the assassin training, fighting perspective. It's more romancy based with a little bit of political intrigue, subplot kind of things going on. Now, if you're just trying to vibe with assassins, I would say try Nevernight or Graceling. Both of these books are wonderful. Nevernight focuses on another young FMC that has a tragic backstory, a tragic past, and she does become an assassin. And it is very gory. I believe it is more gory than Throne of Glass. Definitely more gory than When the Moon Hatched. I don't remember how gory Graceling is, but Graceling is also focused on an FMC who becomes an assassin, because in Graceling, the magic system is based on graces, and those graces show us, those graces are whatever somebody is fishing at more than any other person, and our FMC's grace just so happens to be killing. And she also works as the king's enforcer and happens to uncover a secret that she should not know. Another FMC based assassin story would be Grave Mercy, and those are the only ones I can think of off the top of my noggin right now. Well, everyone, thank you for making it this far with me. I see the sun has moved some more and my lighting is different again, so I'm sorry about that. But we are outside. So I thank you for joining me to talk about Book 2 of my Roman Empire, Crown of Midnight. As always, it has been a pleasure having you here with me, and if you enjoyed this, please hit that like and subscribe button down below. That way you are brought back next time when I go over Book 3 or Assassin's Blade, whichever one I decide to read next. Until next time.